If you're going to claim that you know anything about Plato, there are a few of his stories from the Republic that you absolutely must know. The first is the allegory of the cave. Plato asks us to imagine that a group of children had been captured when they were young, and that they were captured and sent down to the bowels of a cave. And they were held prisoner there in a way that they could only face forward, and that the only thing that they could ever see were projections of images that were created by a fire in the cave. The people would hold up the objects on the runway, and the fire behind would illuminate it and create false images projected onto the wall. But Plato wanted to know, what if one of the people got curious, broke away from the chains, and actually made it up out of the cave and into the light? And of course, this is an allegory for what a philosopher should do. He should realize that the things of this world are merely lies or false images that have been projected to him. He should seek to break away from those lies and find his way using philosophy and reason to ascend to the greater realm of truth, what Plato calls the world of the forms. Another idea from Plato's Republic that any philosophy student must know is about the myth of the charioteer. In the myth of the charioteer, we have a charioteer who is riding in the charioteer is driving a chariot, obviously, that is controlled by two steeds, one black and one white. The black steed represents the passions or appetites of life, things for like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And the white steed represent the spirit, the desire to fight the good fight when it needs to be fought, a warrior's passion to go out and battle for that which is good and necessary and true. And Plato believed that both of these drives were vital, that without a person being driven by either their appetite or their spirit, they do nothing. They basically are a couch potato. So he realized that all human beings must be driven. But what is absolutely essential for the philosopher is to have reason in control of those two drives, to be in control of bodily passion and at the same time being in control of that desire to fight. Having both of those under the control of reason, Plato believed that each individual could accurately guide his or her life and make it to the world of the forms. So in essence, the myth of the charioteer acts as the method or the way that a person would break out of the cave in the previous story in the allegory of the cave. Only when a person had mastered their appetites and their spirit through the use of reason would they have any chance of escaping from the cave and learning how to get out and ultimately being worthy of controlling society. Relating back to the allegory of the cave is Plato's idea of the divided line. And basically what he thought was that our lives are controlled by others, that our minds are controlled by others unless we are dominated by reason. That we can't rely on the images or the ideas of this world, that they are merely caught in the world of change, the world of becoming. That they were constantly changing. What we think is real is actually just something in the process of ever occurring change. Only when we escape the idea of that this world has any form of reality, that there is a greater world that exists outside of us, the idea of perfection and truth, that can only really at first be grasped through mathematical understanding the truths of mathematics, and then ultimately that we can understand the ideals of all big concepts like truth and beauty and justice and goodness. That was only created through the use of the dialectic, the Socratic method. So how do we escape the cave of lies and reach the world of the truth, the world of the forms? It is only when a person masters his mind through the use of mathematics and then ultimately through the use of the dialectic, which is exactly what Plato advocated that his educational system would be based upon, can a person have any hope of escaping the cave and proving themselves worthy of running the society that Plato envisions in his Republic. Now, what is Plato's view of art? It's very ironic that Plato one of the most masterful and artistic writers in the history of Western civilization, actually hated art. He wanted it banned, and in the Republic, in Book 10, he goes into a very deep discussion of how and why he would ban art from society. And most importantly, he thought that it should be banned because it is nothing but an imitation, that it's not the beautiful thing itself, it's not the ultimate ideal of the beautiful thing itself, that it is merely a representation of it. So why would you want people to focus on the lie, the illusion, the representation or the imitation of the art or that beautiful object? He thought people should think of the object itself. So Plato wanted people to begin with this level, where they would actually go out and experience beautiful things, which would then get them to think about the concept of beauty itself. Why do I think these things are beautiful? And if they contemplated it enough and discussed it through Socratic dialogue, eventually, if they were good philosophers, they would understand what the form of beauty is and understand why things are beautiful, because they match up or more closely relate to the form of beauty itself. Last but not least, you need to understand how what Plato talks about philosophically in the Republic matches up to what he's advocating for the social institutions of the Republic. What Plato argued is that if the individual allowed reason, here at the top, to control both spirit and appetite, you would get a healthy and virtuous individual. That is the person that's going to be deemed worthy to run the Republic. For the state, for the SI side, Plato advocated that we need a group of rulers who are dominated by wisdom. They are reasonable, rational leaders that don't rule with their own self-interest involved, but want to lead for the betterment and good of all people in the society. He argued that they had to be in control of the warriors or the soldiers of society, and that those people matched up to the more courageous and spirited people. You want the good warriors who go out and fight the good fight for the right reasons in your society. You need them to protect you against outside invasion. But they can't run society according to Plato. Only rulers who are dominated by reason can do that, his philosopher kings. And of course, the rulers have to be in control of the workers, the people who actually go out and make and produce the important things for society. They produce the food, they produce the goods, they create the services that are vital for society to run. And the virtue that they must be dominated by is moderation. Plato advocated that these people should have wealth, they should have material possessions, because that's what drives a worker to work harder. But he says only when the ruler is in control and don't allow them to get too much of anything, too much wealth, too much power, that's when those workers can be driven to try to take control and actually end up hurting society. So what's the connection to SI? Whenever you have a group of individuals who allow reason to dominate their spirit and appetite, you can create healthy individuals who can then run a state that is dominated by wisdom, with both the soldiers and workers in control of those rulers, and you'll get a society that creates justice, which is Plato's ultimate goal in writing the Republic.